Alright, so here's an idea I've had. Now, working in society's given me a fair bit of perspective onto these things, and just made me understand myself and the past and other people a little bit better. So here we have a basic, what I call job hierarchy. Now this could also be money hierarchy, put that as well. To some extent it's societal status, the societal status hierarchy. And what I found is the harsh reality. This is probably more for men, or it'll relate more to men, but the harsh reality is you are judged on your ability to make money, and you are judged on your job, and you are judged on your position in society. Now, it's not the only thing you're judged on. If we just say we put everything on circle, maybe a good third would be all of this stuff. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less, I don't know. Another third would be just your raw self, which would be your personality. It would be your the energy you give off. It's kind of like how you can have a charismatic homeless person, or you can have a CEO who is an asshole that no one likes, and they deal with them because they have money, but because they have a bad personality, potentially, well, they're a bad person. They just simply don't have much going for them. What would the other factors be? I'm not really sure. I'm not going to analyze it in this video. It could be things like family, for example, community and family. How good your status in that community and family is. It could be things more relating to earth. Again, your home, your material possessions, your stored money. You could be poor or average wage, but maybe you have a lot of money stored up. Who knows? Potential. These are all things. But anyway, getting back to the main idea. Right here in the middle, number 5, we have average wage. Now, there's a bit of a misconception that average wage is a bad thing, or that everyone seems to have an average wage. Well, it's not exactly that. It's not true. Average means like, how do we put this? It's right in the middle. It's right in the middle, you can think. So a decent chunk of people have it, but not everyone. The same way, there are still a lot of people that are poor, and there are still a decent chunk of people that are rich. Probably not as many people that are rich that there are as poor, as in there are more poor people than rich people, I would assume, but there's still a decent chunk of both. Now in America, I believe the average wage is it about 40-50k, something around there. So I think around 40-50k, maybe 40 to 50k USD. That's not too bad. You could pretty much live off that amount of money per year in any country, and pretty good if you know how to use it. It's very nice. Now, I heard the average income for millennials is 20k. It's actually 10 to 20k, or the high point is 25k actually. So around 10 to 25k for millennials. Now that's not a lot of money. It's it's money. Money's money at the end of the day, but really it's just enough to kind of get you by. It's going to pay your bills, get you by. Depending on 10k, that's a bit. Yeah, I don't know how you get by on that, but at least 20k or 25, it'll get you by. But that's pretty much average wage for millennials, so it's not very good. It really isn't very good. I imagine then boomers, their average wage would be about 60k maybe. If we assume, so this is kind of the level of money, and this is all in USD or for America. Different countries is going to be different. Different countries has different cost of living. Some countries, our average is about 20k USD. Some can even be more, like 80k. Now, level 0 is homeless. When you're homeless, people will pretty much, I guess, avoid you, or they'll look down on you, or sometimes they'll pity you, or sometimes they'll help you. But homelessness is essentially you are at the lowest point of society. This is like a fundamental thing, and you could be a charismatic, a well experienced, good homeless person, but at the end of the day, in the eyes of society, you are trash. You're nothing. This is where you have to rely on the world or the earth for your nutrients, essentially. Now, what I find is that to live, we need calories, which is a measurement of heat. We need, essentially, you need to balance the elements in your body. You need water and heat. And you get that heat from, or energy, water and energy. Water is kind of like the precursor to matter, you can think. Heat is the precursor to energy. So you'd have to eat like, bark, and you can eat pretty much everything is edible. It's just that some things are poisonous, so they're like semi-edible. You have to detoxify them, or eat enough that you gain resilience, things like that. So pretty much everything's edible. It's like bark, leaves, grass, herbs. If you can hunt animals or throw stones at birds, you'd be doing that. That's if you're homeless. Now, the reality is actually that homeless people receive a lot of benefits. If anything, the funny thing is that homeless people and number 2, people on welfare, I don't know if it's spelled like that or if it's got an I, are actually reasonably well taken care of, depending on the culture, of course, depending on the society. Now, I'm kind of harsh, and I believe that welfare should not exist, and care for the homeless should not exist. Welfare in all forms. That means childcare, that means aged care, that means everything. I think if you haven't built a strong enough family, then that you can take care of people, you fucked up. I think we should go back to that. And if you're not from a strong enough family that can't take care of you, well, tough shit. You die. I think society will get a lot better that way. It is harsh, but sometimes we need a bit of harshness. But anyway, number 1 is when you have some kind of home or some kind of shelter or some kind of free meal. Essentially, you're getting basic survival met, and it might not be so good. You might not be eating meat. You might not be eating well, but you're getting some kind of care. You're getting something somehow. Number 2 is welfare. Being on welfare destroys your work ethic. If you are able to work, if you're able to do something, being on welfare destroys your life if you abuse it and use it for too long. It's a terrible, terrible thing that if you can avoid it, avoid it. It is much better to work a shit job than to be on welfare. Much, much better. Because at the end of the day, if you're on welfare, you are at the mercy of whoever is giving you that. They own you as a slave. They literally own you. You're their bitch. So avoid this at all costs. To some extent, if you were used to being homeless and you're a very strong individual, maybe you'd be better to do that. I don't know. Anyway, now number 3 is gig / kind of immigrant jobs. Now, immigrant jobs is a bit debatable. I'll talk about that a little bit, but basically, actually, I'll replace that with pre or below minimum wage job. Below minimum wage job. This means you're earning like $5 an hour, 15 maybe, depending on the currency. If you go look up transcription online, which is basically typing out audio. It's not as easy as you might think. It's actually it's a bit of a challenging job, and the websites are incredibly strict. I don't know how they make any money, these websites, because they're so strict on their people and they pay them absolutely nothing. Those jobs, they pay about 1 to, if you're really good, 7 USD per hour. USD per hour. Shit money. Absolute shit money. Absolutely terrible money. If you come from a third world country, maybe it's okay. If you can earn $5 an hour and you can get that solidly, it's pretty good money. If you're from like a third world country, I imagine. This part sucks. This point really sucks. This is gig jobs and all that. Things that aren't stable, things that aren't solid, things that you don't get paid by the hour. You get paid by usually the work you do. So it's even worse. Now this position sucks. It's very difficult at this position to afford housing and necessities. To some extent, it's easier on welfare if you do it. A lot of people, they're on welfare. They're also on this, or they're on either below or below average job / minimum wage. Minimum wage. Number 4, below minimum wage. Okay, now before that, I want to talk about immigration. A lot of immigrants work these kinds of jobs below minimum, actually usually from average to, and they, some of them hop on welfare as well. Usually that's immigrants. Now, the weird and funny thing is that immigrants are actually really rich. A lot of them come to the Western countries because they can't find work in their own, apparently they can't find work in their own country. Now they already have usually a family, a house, a farm, some other things, and money. In the West, most people below 35 do not have a house. They don't even have a mortgage on a house or anything. Maybe when you're 35 you can afford a mortgage on a house, So who's really rich at the end of the day? But anyway, the problem with immigration, of course, go to another country if you really like that country, if you actually want to do it. But if you're trying to move to another country because you already have a house, a family, all this shit, and then you want more money, well, here's the problem. Because you can't find one in your own country, you take jobs in that country. Immigrants take jobs in the other country, and then the people living there who are from that country can't get jobs. Then they have to do the same. Then it's this parasitical cycle where continuously people keep going to other countries to take the jobs, because here's where the hierarchy gets more interesting. The higher you are, the more value you give to society. And number 10, these people give jobs. See, the lower people they take from the world. The higher people, they give. There are less people who give and more people who take. Realistically, what these immigrants should be doing is starting their own business in their own country. If you own a fucking house or a farm or something land, you can start a business. You really can. You can grow. You can just start growing things, or you can just start harvesting resources or something. You can figure out a way. Again, if you really love a country, go there, do that, whatever. But don't be parasitical. Now a job is like half parasitical and half beneficial. You're doing a service, but you're taking money for it. You're not creating jobs. You're not really creating money. You're just a conduit. You're completely in the middle, which is this average wage job. You have to at least do something to get an average wage job. You have to at least do some kind of work. So you are a conduit of energy. Now welfare, you are just taking energy. You're just taking money, which again is energy from the system. Homeless, you're just taking from the world. What you're giving back to the world, who knows? Probably not much. You basically your human waste, essentially, from eating food and then giving it back in like a literal way. Assuming you're not, teaching people or doing some kind of homeless wizard stuff. So the higher you go up, once you get to like 7 we'll say is CEO, business, leader of business. Once you hit number 7, you are making more than you are taking, right? Well, once you hit 6, you're technically making more than you're taking. This is high skilled job. High skill job. Now, something like at least in the old world, we would have thought of that as a doctor, a scientist, I don't know, what the high school jobs are. They're just like a programmer, maybe. Now, of course, I have zero respect for modern doctors. Just gonna put that out there. So I classify them as the very low people. But if you are an actual doctor who studies real medicine, not just what drug to treat, what thing, then of course you're high skill. Just a side note. High skill is because you have learnt something that's difficult, something that can't be learnt in like a month or maybe a year. You've learnt that, and you're providing a lot of help, a lot of you're moving things around a lot more than an average person or a below average person, right? A below average person, realistically, they probably earn more money than what they do. Minimum wage, it is tricky because the thing is, in some of these below minimum wage jobs, you actually do a lot more work than you're paid, right? In an average minimum wage job, you might be doing less work than what you're paid for, if you get what I mean. If your job is just to, I don't know, look at boxes on a construction line for 8 hours a day and see if one of the boxes has like a little printing error on its picture, you really shouldn't be paid much for that. I know, people are going to complain, be like, well, they need to live a life. Well, yes, but at the end of the day, you're not doing something you're not like, I don't know, trying to prospect and find where ore is or something. Like, that's a little bit higher skilled than just looking at boxes on a construction line. But legally, they have to pay you minimum wage. Now, the problem is that you're draining more money than you're giving of a service. We'd have to debate how much looking at boxes for 8 hours really should give you per hour. I would assume about 10 American dollars. That's probably generous. Maybe realistically like 7 or 8. If you're really good if you make no mistakes, and maybe you get about $8, but otherwise you get about 7. If we're going to be realistic, so you have to look at what is the value of the labor, and also what is the restrictions. I believe in the future, more and more, as the internet and internet jobs and gig jobs becomes a thing, minimum wage won't actually exist. So there'll be a lot more below minimum wage current jobs, and that'll kind of balance out the labor market a bit more, because if people don't have to pay as much, there'll be more jobs, and all that. Ultimately it'll be better, because the problem now is that this is a chasm of death. To go from like welfare to an actual average wage job is very difficult in today's society. It's been made ridiculously difficult. Even to get from welfare to a minimum wage job is honestly, it's fucking difficult. That's what I think. Anyway, so CEO, just a base. Oh, actually, this is more. Let's see. This is CEO. CEO. This is more like upper level management. So upper management. Upper management, right? Now, again, it's debatable whether you give more value being an upper management person or a management person than a high skill person. It's debatable. It's more that you're managing people. it's because the higher you go up, the more you're managing people or you're managing systems. This could be upper level management of a system as well. Maybe you manage a website that gets a lot of traffic, and while yes, you're probably not doing as much work as the high skill person, or I mean average and below average, maybe you're doing some kind of labor job, 12 hour, 10 hour labor, doing a lot of fucking work, but this essentially, the value of the work is more important. Because maybe you have 1 million people on the website, and if you fuck it up, then that's 1 million people who are angry or who are annoyed or whose lives are impacted. While if you are a laborer and you tip over some bricks, well, you're gonna have to spend 20 minutes stacking them, something like that. Well, this it's wasted thousands of collective minutes, potentially hours or whatever. Anyway, then CEO, of course, you're higher on the chain again. Number 9 is like mid-level CEO. So mid-level CEO. Because there's kind of low level CEO, mid level, and high level CEO. This can also be investor. Again, investors, they could give millions and billions of dollars to projects. You're basically raining money on people, and you're giving money to the system. You're giving energy to the system. So an investor is related to this as well. You could also just be an investor who buys business, for that matter. But yeah, low-level CEO is like less people, less money running through your business. Maybe this is kind of like, I guess this would be kind of like when an internet entrepreneur or regular entrepreneur starts hitting a couple 100,000 a year. High-level, high-skill jobs they're about over 100K. So this level upper management, high skill, this is kind of like the over 100K point. Probably you're not going to get to like 200 USD K per year, probably not. CEO, that's more when you get up to like 200, 300-ish K depending. Mid-levels, once you start hitting like over half a mil to about half a mil, big businesses 1 mil to infinity, really. The sky is the limit. And this, again, it's not always the people that are in the business. It could be lots of people, but it could also just be big investments. Lots of people investing in your business. Lots of people using your services. It's all about like the money and the flowing through it, and the time that people spend flowing through it, and the interest and kind of the attraction and all that your business gets. And it could be corporate or it could be self-run. So you take that for what it is. Anyway, so that is the hierarchy in all of it. Yes, just played out. So some other philosophical ideas, I guess, is that the higher you get, as I said, the more value you give to society, because you are creating more jobs, you're creating more innovation, you're creating more industrial, this kind of stuff. The lower you are, the less you're creating, the more you're actually taking. Averages, you're just a little power conduit, you're sort of cog, little gear. You give out as much energy as you take. You're just a transformer. You transform energy to a different version. You basically just convert money by taking in money to work, as a one-for-one, so to speak. People below this is like, I was going to talk about status and all that, so I will now. People below this are treated as shit. People above this are treated as good. This is essentially, people here are treated as gods. People here are treated as absolute trash. People at the average point are just treated normally. If you've never worked like a service job or a below average, minimum wage, if you never worked like a below minimum wage job, it's shit. It's fucking shit. People treat you like shit, and you want to fucking kill all of them, to be honest. If you've ever been in a higher up position, people treat you well. If you're a man, women will just instantly want to be around you. Men will, as they say, men will want to be you, women will want to be with you. It's very true. If you're below average, well, you know, you're going to have to rely on some of the other things that I said, like your personality, who you are as a person, your ability to do things, your intelligence, education, your physical form, you know, because of course this isn't everything. This isn't everything, but it's important. It's big. It's at least a third. It is at least a third of life. It's big, if not more, if not like a half. I don't really want to put it as a half. Maybe it's my naivety, but I'd really rather not. But it is very important, you know, status and position in society. It's very, very important, as much as I hate that. And it relates to usually your earthly ability, you know, how successful you are earthly. This kind of below here is like the earthly ability, here is more like intellectual. So honestly, your intelligence doesn't really matter until you start hitting a higher skill job. Below high skill jobs, it's more important about your work ethic, about your ability to wake up at a certain time, to, you know, stave off pain and hunger and just the grind and hustle, and to be physically strong. People who are physically stronger will hit the average point easy. People who are weak, you know, homeless people, mentally, physically ill, people who basically have to be cared for, mentally, physically ill, people on welfare, again, mentally, physically ill, or lazy, or low ambition, you know, lower ambition. Some people are content at a minimum wage job. They have no ambition to go higher. You can't go beyond number 5, or about number 5, 6, maybe 7. Maybe 7 you can get up to if you have no ambition. You slowly, it's like your life every year is like a brick that slowly builds and builds on top of each other, and you slowly get a little bit higher and a little bit higher and a little bit higher and a little bit higher. And then after 10 years you notice that your minimum wage job has turned into a, you know, high skill job, or at least the payment, you know, the price or whatever. Maybe you just passively found your way developing skills, you know, if you want to take the lazy way, so you can get up there. But usually the people who are higher are very ambitious, they're very intelligent, you know, generally, and they're very earthly, meaning they're physically incredibly, you know, resilient and strong, and, you know, all that kind of shit. Well, the people down below are usually innately very weak. Some of them are intelligent, but, you know, generally they are stupid. They're not very earthly. They get sick easy. They get injured easy. They, you know, all this kind of shit. Yeah. So anyway, I'm sure you get the point. I'll leave it there. So check the links in the description for social and commercial. You want to buy any books or anything, or you want to, you know, comment or email to me, feel free. Yeah, I hope this gave you some interesting ideas. This is some stuff that I've been thinking about and experiencing for the last few years, and yeah. Let's all do our best to make it to the top, eh? Because fuck the bottom. The bottom is more free in the way that the top is more free. It's like the peak of the mountain is the exact same as the bottom of the cave. You're basically alone and by yourself, but I'd rather have lots of fucking money than have nothing. So take the mountain that this is for what it is. Goodbye.